Hey guys, this is Manjeet here and welcome back to my channel again. So many of you guys have been asking me around like what is the best phone that you can buy in about 15,000 rupees. So the reason I haven't been doing a video for this 1 week is because I have been doing some small researches. So I found out 10 best phones for you guys. So of course I did take the help of my internet buddy over here. And I got some very special and interesting news as well. So let's begin. Number 10, Moto G5. Moto G5 is one of the G series phone in Moto, and Moto has been there for almost so many years right now, and it has been doing some amazing renovations and innovations at the same time. So this G5 Plus has the spec of 3 gigs of RAM, 16 GB internal storage. You have the 5.2 display, which is 1080p 1920 with the resolution over there. 2 GHz octa-core processor. Then you have operating system of course the Android. Primary camera of 12 megapixel. Then you have the front camera of 5 megapixel. Battery is almost 3000 mAh battery, so it will last you almost 7 to 8 hours according to me, so it should last over there. But then you have this is known as the SoC chip over there, and the chip is known as the Qualcomm Snapdragon 625. Guys, whenever you see that 625 is there in the phone, and if it's ranging up to 15,000 rupees, it's better not to go for that phone at all. It's better to go for something much more premium or above that level. The first reason is because the 625 chip becomes hot. It really is hard for anyone to handle a phone for almost 5 to 6 hours a day. So when you have this kind of chipset, it really becomes hot. Number 9 is Honor 9 Lite. If you guys have seen that this phone has the Kirin 659 SoC inside it, and it has one of the best powers over the Mi A1. But in this phone, in this category, I would not recommend to go with the Honor 9 Lite because the camera specs are not that good. Because see, the primary camera is 13 and 13 plus 2 megapixel, and then again with the 13 plus 2 megapixel front as well. So what this does is the camera over there is 2 lenses for the bokeh mode and of course the other modes as well, but it is not one of the best cameras and I would not suggest you to go for that. Also, it has a display of 5.6 inch display, so 1080 to 2160, and which is giving you approx of 5.65 screen ratio. I guess the screen is 5.65, and yeah, that's good, but it's not the best in this price range. Number 8. So the next phone we all have is the Honor 7X. So you guys know that the Honor 7X is basically a cut down version of the Honor 9i. So many of you have not seen that phone maybe, but if you have been searching over the internet, then you would have found out that phone. And it's good, but it's again rocking that same Kirin 659 SoC inside it, and it's good, but the processing speed and the computing speed is not that fluid. So going for this budget phone would be a thumbs up for anyone who is going for Honor, but it's not up to par excellence in this level of smartphone. So it has a RAM of 4 gigs, 32 gigs of internal storage, then the display is 5.93, which is almost near about 6 inches, and 1080 to 2160, because these phones all have the 18:9 aspect ratio. So you guys know that the pixels will be a little bit more denser and a little bit more crisp as it's 1080 to 2160. So the next thing is the battery life is 3340. So Honor does come with a different kind of approach altogether. They basically give you a 3340 mAh battery which will last you almost 3 to 4 days, but that is not the real fact. You will get a good amount of backup battery as well from this device. Then again, in the primary you have the 16 plus 2, which is the which is for the portrait, and then in the front you get the 8 megapixel. So this is the processor is 2.36 gigahertz octa-core. From what I have seen in the previous generations, when you have an octa-core processor, if its clock hertz a little bit less, like for example the Moto G5 Plus, phone is bound to be much more problems with handling over the task and over the task panels and everything else. Number 7. So the next phone is Xiaomi Mi Max 2. So Mi Max is again one of the predecessors of the Redmi Note 4. Basically a 6.44 inch display, so it's kind of big but it doesn't feel like that. It has a 5300 mAh battery which will last you almost like, it's basically the best ever. It will last you 2 days almost. So the RAM storage of this phone is 4 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of internal storage, which is the base model. So then again the display, as I said, 6.44, and it is also, the screen resolution is not that crisp. It's 1080 to 1920, which is not going up to the 2160. So the crispness of the screen, the crispness of the LCD panel will be a little bit dimmer than the other phones. The next is the gigahertz. Again, it's clocking the gigahertz to a little bit less, so it's basically a power saving phone, so you guys know that. 2 gigahertz of octa-core processor again. Then you have the primary lens of 12 megapixel and front camera of a 5 megapixel. So the battery is 5300, as I have told you guys. Then here comes the SoC again, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 625, which as I said before, it does have a heating issue. Number 6. In the 6th position, we have the Xiaomi Redmi 5. So this is basically a phone which just came out, which has been almost 2 months or something, and it's rocking on all of the people, and everyone who is a crazy fan of Redmi basically would love going for a Redmi Note 5 or would go for a Redmi 5. Xiaomi Redmi 5 is basically one of the most refreshed models from the previous generation, which was the Redmi 4, and it basically has all of these specs with the 18:9 aspect ratio. Then it is so affordable that you guys can get through that. You guys can go for that phone. With the RAM of 2 gigs of RAM, of course there are a specific RAM bump as well with the price range. You can go up to 4 gigs of RAM, I suppose. And then the display is 5.7 inch display, but it does come with a 720 to 1440p panel, which is almost good for the price range, but I wouldn't suggest you to go for this one because there is much more better phone which is coming on the top right now. And then you have the processor of 1.8 gigahertz octa-core processor, primary megapixels of 5 megapixel. Then the front camera has a 5 megapixel camera. Then battery is 3300 mAh battery, which is basically, basically the norms nowadays. And then you have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 450. This basically goes around 8,000 bucks or maybe more than that, but it's kind of cool as well. Number 5. In the number 5 list, we have the Moto G6. The Moto G6 comes in a stunning glass design. I really loved it. When I saw it in the store, I really wanted to get that phone, but I was not able to because I went for this. So this was basically my second option for, if I wouldn't have gone for the OnePlus, then I would have gone for this phone. So it has basically a 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of internal storage, which is basic for anyone who is not that hard of a worker or who is not operating so many of apps. So it's basically good for them. And then you have the 5.7 inch display, 1080 to 2160 screen resolution. So that is kind of cool, as I said before. Then you have the processor as in octa-core. Then you have the primary camera of 12, then 5 MP megapixel camera. Then of course front camera is 8 megapixel, battery is 3000 mAh battery. Now here is the main thing. When you go down a level, when you have an SoC of 450, it basically doesn't do justice to a 3000 mAh battery capacity. So the main problem with this phone was not only its hardware, but also when you have a glass panel over the back, you do not get the extreme heat, you do not get the main problems of a phone. Cellular intake would be good, but the 4G speed wouldn't be that good, because when you have this Qualcomm Snapdragon 450, it does hamper a lot of network. I have seen some of my previous phones which I was using, and it was not good at all. So in number 4, we have the Realme 1. It does come in the greatest color ever, that is red. It's so good. I have seen it in one of my friend's hands and it was like, oh my god, it was breathtaking. Especially, I would basically suggest this phone for ladies, I guess, because it's really grasping. It's like blood red. I can't show you the color, but red, but it has this berry texture red. It's kind of different, it's kind of interesting. So let's go for the specs over this phone. So RAM is 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of internal storage, which is again the base. Then you have the display of 1080p to 2160. That is kind of interesting. So the processor is 2 GHz octa-core. Then you have the primary camera of 13 megapixel. Front camera is 8 megapixel. This does have the ability to shoot portrait mode, which is software based, so you guys can see that. But I would not recommend portrait mode in one camera lens, because other than the Pixel, no one has perfected it till now. So the battery is 3410 mAh battery, so it's kind of good. Now here comes another thing. The SoC is MediaTek Helio P60. So this would basically be a good buy for anyone who is searching for a phone with a long-lasting battery. But this Helio P60 does have a heating issue. And as I've seen in many other softwares or many other upgrades, also in the phones as also in other small technical gadgets, that heating issues persist in any kind of phone. Even the OnePlus 5T, it wasn't heating before, but after the software update, it does have some heating issues. So number 3, we have the Xiaomi Mi A1. So everyone knows about this phone because it's so mainstream right now. The Mi A1 is one of the best phones you can buy right now because it's so affordable. It takes around 13,900, which is almost 14,000 rupees, and you can get it in cheaper if you go to a retailer. And it's one of the best phones ever to be rocking 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of internal storage. Then you have the 5.5-inch display, 1080 to 1920. This display is kind of crisp than the other displays which I have previously seen. And then you have the 2 gigahertz processor, octa-core processor, so that's kind of cool. Then you have the primary lens of 12 megapixel, and then you have the 12 megapixel, which is the dual lens you guys can get. And then you have the front of 5 megapixel. The battery is 3080 mAh battery, so that's kind of cool. Qualcomm Snapdragon 625. Again, it's kind of good for the best buy reason, but Mi A1 is kind of in the mainstream right now. Number 2. In number 2, we have the Asus Zenfone Max Pro M1. This was very hard for me because I wanted this phone to go on the top. In the number 2 list, I did have a little bit of problem because I didn't want the Asus Zenfone Max Pro M1 to be number 2 because there was a little bit of difference, which I'm going to tell you right now, was the reason it was bumped down to number 2. So you guys all know this phone because it has a massive battery capacity of 5000 mAh battery, and it is basically in almost 12,999 rupees. I did find that this phone costs almost less right now because you know the fluctuation of the price range, and it's coming down to almost 11,000 rupees. It has a fingerprint scanner, 4 gigs of RAM, internal storage of 32 gigs. Then you have the 6-inch display, which is 1080 to 2160 again. Then you have the processor of 1.8 gigahertz octa-core processor, which is amazing for this price range. And then you have the operating system is Android, obviously, Nougat. Then you have primary camera of 13 megapixel and then plus 5 megapixel for the portrait lens. And then you have the front camera of 8 megapixel. Battery is a massive 5000 mAh battery, which will last you almost 2 days together. And then you have the SoC. Here you have an SoC of Qualcomm SDM636 and Snapdragon 636 SoC. So this is kind of cool. I did love this. I did like this one, this combo of these two chipsets. And it's kind of good, and it's good in the most tech savvy way, because everyone would go for this phone rather than going for something a little bit more. Sometimes what happens with us is that we basically have a certain amount of money, which is say 13,000 rupees. We cannot go above that, or we cannot go below that. So that is the reason I would suggest you guys to go for this phone. This is one of the best, and you will never regret having this phone in your hands. So here we have the number one list, the number one phone. So the number one and the top winner for me is the Redmi Note 5 Pro. So many of you guys have already seen the review of the Note 5 Pro, and I am extremely sorry I did not have this phone, so I couldn't make a review out of it. But this phone is the best in 15,000 price range right now. So basically this is powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 636 SoC, and the Redmi Note 5 Pro is now the best performer under the 15,000 bracket, which is said by everyone whoever has reviewed this phone. I have personally seen it in one of my friends friends' hands, and I did like it. I did like using it. It's so seamless. I guess it's very seamless at the same time. It has a 4 GB of RAM and 64 gigs of internal storage. Then you have the display of 5.99, which is almost 6, and the resolution is 1080 to 2160. Then the processor is 1.8 GHz octa-core processor. Then you have the primary lens of 12 megapixel and the 5 megapixel at the same time. Is the front camera. Guess what is the megapixel over there? It is a 20 whopping megapixel camera in the front. So this phone is one of the best. I really loved it. Then the battery is kind of massive. It has a 4000 mAh battery, but because of the camera and because of the crispness of everything, it is one of the best phones I would suggest for you guys. This again comes with the SDM636 chipset and the Snapdragon 636 chipset. So that concludes our top 10 phones under 15,000 rupees budget. So thank you guys for watching this video. I do hope that you liked it. Do subscribe to my channel if you are new to my channel, and hit the bell icon to remain notified. I'll be posting a lot of videos by this week, because I was kind of lethargic in the past one week, because I had to do a lot of research over these phones altogether. And so thank you guys, and this is Manjeet, and signing off.